So let me just repeat one more time for anyone who just hopped on the call. Make sure that you have a pen and paper handy tonight. Okay, so before we dive into this week's curriculum, I'd like to hear from anyone who has any observations or epiphanies or insights around the practice, questions, comments. Notice anything interesting that you would like to share with the group. It's very helpful to share too, because sometimes you say something that everyone else had the experience of, and you normalize an experience. So if there's anything on your mind, please. Jackson.
I really like this practice. I went to bed practicing the night that you gave it, and I just was able to sleep so heavy. I woke up in the morning and that practice was still there. It was just nice to be able to continually relax throughout the day instead of needing, 10 minutes. Now I get some downtime to relax, which is great too. But it was nice to just have that continued release throughout the day.
Right on. Yeah, beautiful observation. So you're speaking of relaxation as a constant practice. Just constantly remember to kind of down regulate and be at ease. Beautiful, man. That's the way to bring the practice into life. Thank you for sharing that. Rod.
Yeah, I had an observation and a question.
Mm-hmm.
My observation was that what I noticed was that with the 2 weeks that we've had, that I can now have like a distinguishing, like separation almost between an emotion that's arising rather than going like, say, I feel angry.
Mm-hmm.
If I just say feel, I can sense that there's anger arising in my body. I can feel heat. I can feel sensation. And it feels like there's a gap between, say, my experience or the experience, if that makes sense. And my question is equanimity a byproduct of concentration and clarity?
That's a great question. I think that yes, I think that we're talking about three distinct skills: concentration, clarity, and equanimity. But deepening in any one of them tends to facilitate deepening in the others. So absolutely, equanimity can be thought of as a byproduct between concentration and clarity. Concentration can be thought of as a byproduct between equanimity and clarity. Clarity can be thought of as a byproduct between concentration and equanimity. They're all constantly informing one another. And it's not really, if you're getting better at one, you're getting better at the others. There's a culminating effect between the three of them. And it's amazing what you stated. I mean, just to feedback your example, you notice moments where you feel anger, but rather than mindlessly react to the arising of anger, you're able to just be with it, to maybe watch it come and watch it go, but not to allow it to dictate your course of action unskillfully, because there's a little bit of a space now between the sensory experience and your awareness of it.
Yeah, that's exactly how it felt. And there was no sense of bypassing or skipping over. I was still fully connected to the feeling and the experience, but there was no desire to react or an instinctive reaction. There was space for choice.
Beautiful.
And yeah, just saying the word feel, even after it already started, like I'd already started to say in my mind, like, I'm so angry, and I just said feel. And just that gave me the distance to go, there's anger present in my body. It totally changed the experience in the moment.
It's amazing, Rod. Thank you for sharing that, man. And I really love what you said about there was no flavor of bypassing it. You were fully available to feel what was happening in that moment, and in that moment it was anger. But you didn't have to say or do anything that you'd later regret as a result of it. My teacher says, the phrase he always uses that I love, we have 0.3 of a second before the terrorists take the building. So What it means is we have to train ourselves to be really clear as what's happening right now. Has anyone ever flown off the handle and said something or done something that they basically instantly regretted? It's because something happens, some emotion happens, your body mind makes a decision that you're not really even there for. And all of a sudden, this course of action has been set in motion. You're just like, oh, why did I say that? Why did I do that? But through this practice, we start to really be available for what's happening. And then we can make an informed decision as to what course of action we want to take rather than just mindlessly react. So that's a skillful life. Good on you, Rod. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for your amazing teachings. It's awesome. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything interesting come up in practice? Jordan Jones.
Brother, the last week's practice with the feel and I believe heal. Correct me.
Last week's practice was feel rest.
Rest. With that specifically, like I had an injury that just came about from me flying back to Los Angeles. As I was pushing my bag under the seat in front of me, like my back spasmed and like an old injury, I think a similar one that you had, the L4, L5 sprung up. And for that whole flight, both flights in excruciating pain, but was reviewing and went to feel and rest and was able to really soak in between the moments of pain, and then also realizing that I had rest in other parts of my body, like my heart, and bringing it from the rest to my heart and pushing it down to where the pain was in my lower back, and having those moments for the pretty much the whole duration of the flight, kind of being in that state, going through the practice of everything leading up to now. And it was taxing, but it was enjoyable as much as it was beneficial in every way.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's what you've done there is use pain as a window instead of a wall, and you use the pain as an opportunity to deepen concentration, clarity, and equanimity. And actually, it sounds like through the practice of really being with the pain and concentrating on it, you found some liberation from it. That's great, Jordan. I'm sorry you injured your back, but I have spoken to a lot of people, maybe even elderly people who have deep practices, and they have chronic pain, and it's not going anywhere. It's not going to get better. They're on their way out. And through this practice, they're able to be with the pain, notice its ebbs and flows. If we don't pay very close attention to physical pain or emotional pain, the mind can create this illusion that it's by really concentrating on the discomfort. You notice that it came and went. You noticed it was an insight really into impermanence. And what you get from that is this recognition that, okay, this will pass. It actually is passing. And we're going to come to a different technique in the later weeks where we're really going to explore that insight. It's one thing to say, this too shall pass. That's like a spiritual platitude that everyone has heard. But as we really soak into any experience, we have the direct, visceral experience that, no, not this too shall pass. This is passing. Everything that is arising is also passing. So kudos to you for using back pain as a window. Well done. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share? Okay, then what I'd like to do now is we're going to review the technique. So we're going to enter a period of guided meditation now. We'll sit for a little longer tonight, maybe around 20 minutes. I'm not going to introduce anything new in the practice period tonight. So we're just going to review, see, hear, feel, and feel rest. So I'll ask you now to find a comfortable position. And you can allow your eyes to close if you like. You're free to keep them open if you prefer. And just do anything that you need to do right now to allow the body mind to settle into the posture and relax. It's always a good idea to check in with the body before a period of practice. Just start with the brow and scan for any tension. And do your best to let that tension go. Relax the jaw. You can press the tongue gently to the roof of the mouth. Let your shoulders fall down away from your ears. Let's just take a few moments just to be with the breath and allow every exhale to deeply relax the body mind. You may notice that the mind is very active, or you may notice that the mind is very tranquil. It's all good. So now I invite you to bring your attention to the visual field, whether eyes are open or closed. If eyes are open, you'll be observing the external visual field. If eyes are closed, observe the internal visual field. That blank screen upon which the mind projects images. Allow any auditory or physical sensations to just play out in the background for now and just see. You may notice mental images being projected on this screen, or it could just be blank. It's all good. And letting that go now and bringing your attention to hear space, both external sound and internal mental talk. Just hear. Allow any physical or visual sensations just to play out in the background, but really soak into hear space. Just hear. And now letting that go and soaking into physical sensation. Feel space. Any external physical sensation whatsoever. Also, any detectable quality of emotion in the body. Allowing any visual or auditory information to play out in the background. Just for a moment, just feel. Scanning the body for physical and emotional sensation. The arena where emotional sensation plays out is typically the face, neck, torso, inside the arms, inside the legs. You may detect emotional rest, that is to say, no real emotion, or you may find something noteworthy. It's all good. Just feel. And now widening our focus to include all three sense gates: see, hear, and feel. No restriction on awareness. Allow your attention to wander as it will, and just note and label where it lands. The see, hear, feel practice. I'll do a little out loud just to refresh your memory. Feel, hear, feel, see, see, feel, feel. You know the technique. If you notice the mind has hijacked your attention and you've wandered into memory, planning, or fantasy, no big deal. Just notice that that's happened. Guide the mind back to the practice. Remember that in this practice, anything at all that is happening is an opportunity to strengthen CC&E, concentration, clarity, and equanimity. So whatever reaction you're having to the practice is an opportunity to work with. And now once again, narrowing our focus just to feel space, combing the body with your attention and scanning for any flavor of rest. Remember, it can be very subtle. Subtle is significant. The internal labels we'll use here are feel, just to keep attention on the body, and rest, anytime you identified a restful state. Remember that quality of restfulness can be local, that is to say, just in the hands, for example, or it can be global and seem to cover the entire body. Feel rest. Allowing any internal mental images or internal mental talk just to exist in the background. The object of our concentration is the quality of rest. Many practitioners report that the exhale serves to intensify the restful quality, so that is an option for you to explore. Another way to cultivate rest in the body is just to intentionally relax the musculature. You could try that now. You could also try relaxing your effort. Feel rest. And now letting that technique go and letting go of any technique whatsoever. And just for a few moments, don't do anything. Just allow the mind to abide in this place of choiceless awareness. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, no one to become, just this moment. And when you're ready, not a moment before, you can allow your eyes to open. So if anyone was curious, that was about 22 or 23 minutes, I believe. Um, Curious how that went, if anyone wants to share their experience. Rod, please.
Yeah, I'm curious. I noticed the distinction between relaxing and rest. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, say on the exhale, I could notice I was relaxing, but that rest existed the most powerfully at the pause between breaths. And that there was even in that, within that distinction, there was another refinement almost of the rest at the bottom of the exhale felt very still, silent, just a sense of just nothingness, almost
Mm-hmm.
complete peace. But
Mm-hmm.
if I magnified the pause, it magnified the feeling, like just slightly, not holding with any tension. And then on the inhale, at the top of the breath, there was also a sense of rest, but there was a vitality or an energy. I didn't want to say energy, but a presence of something that was with the rest. It was a more of an alive rest,
Mm-hmm.
a vitalizing or energizing rest. But there was like two distinct types of rest and a difference between relaxing.
Sounds very interesting, Rod. It sounds very clear. I would encourage you to keep exploring. Yeah,
Thank
sounds
you.
very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Did anyone find it difficult? Dawn.
Only towards the end, I felt like I had so much heat and energy coursing through my body the last few minutes that I had a really hard time sitting still and staying in it. It felt kind of overwhelming. It was just an interesting sensation.
And how did you deal with it?
Just by naming what was happening, feel, rest, feel.
Perfect.
I stayed in the feeling for a while.
Yeah. Great. So that's we would call that recycling the reaction. So I did mention in the guided practice that whatever is happening is an opportunity to practice with, and we can deconstruct it through the see, hear, feel practice.
Mm-hmm.
So any resistance we're having in the moment is likely going to manifest through internal mental image, internal mental talk, and internal body sensation or emotion. So if we can just deconstruct it through see, hear, feel, then there's a liberation there. And it may not be comfortable, but we're strengthening that muscle of equanimity by riding out an uncomfortable moment, which sounds like is exactly what you did.
Yeah.
So you're more equanimous now than you were 3 minutes ago.
I am.
Yes, good for you. Now I will mention too that sometimes practice does get really intense. You know, it's not all unicorns and rainbows. I've said it before and I will say it again. So in those moments, it's sometimes skillful to back off of your practice. You don't always have to white knuckle it. Sometimes life is overwhelming and there's things going on, and sitting with them isn't the best idea. So in those moments, you can focus away from them. If the see, hear, feel technique is feeling a little too raw, you could turn towards feel rest. And there's other techniques that I'll introduce over the course of the next few weeks that are more about cultivating and nurturing positivity. So sometimes facing what is head on, it's not always the best move. So I just wanted to share that with the group. You just described a great example of what we would call bearing down. You had a difficult moment and you just bared down on it. Another strategy that is sometimes called for is backing off. And that's for the practitioner to decide. But Dawn, you decided to bear down, and that's a good job. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else have something they'd like to discuss before I go into my talk this evening? Okay, cool. Michael Holt, aka Shamim.
Hey, Michael. Yeah, it's more like a question.
Mm-hmm.
So the concept of rest or peace, how similar is it to the concept of what is, or like the awareness or emptiness, the pure awareness that you are? Are they sort of something similar in language, or they're maybe parts of the mirror?
Yeah, I suppose, that's the tricky part of this path and this work, is that words are very sticky and they mean different things to different people, depending on what books you've read or what tradition you're into. I think that you could draw a parallel between rest and emptiness. I know that was the nature of our discussion last week, and Rod kind of alluded to it earlier. There's the relaxation quality of rest, and there's just the nothing is happening quality of rest, which would be closer to what I think you're describing as emptiness. So I think it's kind of like potato, rest and emptiness. Um, they're quite similar. I don't know that I can answer your question. Um, I would encourage you to keep exploring. Is that helpful for you?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about practice. So what we've been doing thus far has been, over the past 2 weeks, you guys have been sitting, just by show of hands, by the way, how many people managed to sit every day this week? Right on. Good work. Um, like I said, this stuff works if you actually do it. So I encourage everyone to make the effort to get there every day. And if you miss a day, no big deal. So what we've been doing is formal sitting practice. Now, in this system, we would define formal practice as any meditation period that is at least 10 minutes long, where you're bringing the totality of your attentional resources to a given technique. So for the past 2 weeks, you guys have been sitting for at least 10 minutes. That this would be called a formal meditation period. Now, I think we're at the point where we can all agree, and I am making an assumption here, I could be wrong, where we can all agree that this practice is useful for improving our baseline quality of fulfillment, tranquility, well-being. So that begs the question, why would we only practice for 10 minutes a day? We should be practicing for 6 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. But that's not realistic, because we're not monastics. We're householders. We have lives, we have jobs, we have children, we have spouses, we have responsibility. Now, as the practice deepens, you may experience what my teacher calls a figure ground reversal. This is just a fancy way of saying that the fruits of your practice start to bleed into your life. So the concentration, clarity, equanimity, tranquility, well-being that you feel while you're in the formal practice tends to follow you around as you're going through the motions of your daily life. Now, the figure ground reversal means that initially, for the beginning meditator, the meditation period is something that happens in the course of your day. But with long and consistent practice, your day is something that arises in the context of your meditation period. So the high bar for this practice is to really always be running a technique, to always be in the moment, to always be deepening those foundational skills. And what I want to talk to you guys tonight about is how you can use your life and use things that you're already doing to monasticize your day, to bring the practice into your life so that you don't have to sit for 6 hours a day, but you can still find periods, activities in life that you're already doing and make them into meditation periods. So there are accelerators. I mentioned the formal meditation practice. Now, how did I define that? It's bringing the totality of your attentional resources to a given technique for at least 10 minutes. Nowhere in that definition does it say that you have to be sitting still. You can bring this practice into movement. For example, driving, going to the gym, taking a walk. As long as you're engaged in a technique that is, as long as you're fully engaged in a technique that's strengthening concentration, clarity, and equanimity for at least 10 minutes, we'll call that a formal meditation period. Next, we have what we call micro hits. A micro hit would be any time period 10 minutes or less, and it could just be 10 seconds, where you're, again, bringing the totality of your attentional resources to a given technique. So, for example, you could turn washing the dishes into a feel rest technique. You could, when you get in your car before you take your commute to work, you could take 3 deep breaths to run your see, hear, feel technique. When you get to the office and you put your jacket in the closet, you could take 30 seconds just to touch that stillness that you're cultivating in your formal meditation period. Basically, we're putting like way stations throughout the course of your day so that you can come back to that present state. The formal meditation period is to drop you in a little deeper, and then out in life, it's not really possible to maintain that level of concentration, but you put these little checkpoints throughout your day where you can come back. And then the next day, when you show up to your formal meditation period, you're coming at it from a deeper baseline. Make sense? And so then finally, I want to talk to you about background practice. So the 3 accelerators for practice: formal practice, micro hits, and background practice. Background practice could be any length of time where you're engaged in a life activity, you're at work, you're in conversation with a friend, you're, I don't know, cooking. But in the background, about 10-20% of your attention, you're engaged in a technique. So you're kind of learning how to split your attention so that you can still be cultivating those skills of concentration, clarity, and equanimity in life. So we don't have to restrict this practice just to the 10, 20, 30 minutes where we're sitting still on the cushion. We can bring it into life, and we can use things that we are already doing to accelerate our practice. So you all have a pen and paper, and what I'd like you guys to do now is, well, quickly I'll ask, was that clear? Is anyone confused about what I just said? All right, smart punch. So what I want you to do now is, with your pen and pad, just think about your day, your daily routine. And your first task here is to find where can you squeeze in another, in addition to your daily 10-minute sitting practice, another formal period of meditation that is happening in life. So again, I'll define formal period of practice is at least 10 minutes where you're able to bring the totality of your attentional resources to a given technique. Some examples could be a morning commute, a shower, exercise routine, a walk. Eating a meal, going to a concert. Remember, the criteria that it has to fulfill is at least 10 minutes. And you'll be able to bring the totality of your attention to it. And so the 2 techniques that you guys know thus far that you'll be bringing into your day are see, hear, feel, and feel rest. And so, okay, now I want you guys to think about micro hits. So remember, micro hit is anything, a period of practice that is less than 10 minutes, where you're still able to bring the full the full capacity of your attentional resources to a given technique. And I want you to try to come up with 3 opportunities during your day for a micro hit. A micro hit is less than 10 minutes, and it could literally be 10 seconds. So some examples you could think about here are just waiting in line. Waiting in line at the grocery store is an opportunity to practice. Pumping gas, taking a shower, doing the dishes. The beauty of this practice is that it's skill-based, not technique-based. So we can use things that are already happening in our lives to cultivate those skills of concentration, clarity, and equanimity. We can use what's already happening to deepen our practice. So 3 micro hits. And finally, the background practice. So background practice is more subtle, and these are challenging, I should say. You know, it's just maintaining your attention while you're home alone in a quiet room is difficult. So it is challenging to bring this practice into life, and you can expect some struggles here, and you may not even remember to do it some days, but with time and consistent effort, you're able to bridge the gap between your formal seated practice and your life. So background practice. Remember, you're engaged in the life activity. You know, you're available, you're present, you're not like in a meditative zombie state. But at a deeper level, you're holding 10, 20% of your attention on a technique. So examples could be just in dialogue with a friend, spending some time with your spouse or your children. If there's like a work task that you're doing that doesn't really require so much of your brain, like stuffing envelopes or something that you can just do on autopilot. Yeah, question, Jordan.
Under micro hit though as well, if it's in a sense you could say like something mundane within your daily work life, then that would also be like in background and micro hit.
Yeah, it could be a micro hit. If you were, yeah, I guess it could be both. It depends, I guess, on the nature of what the task is. If you're all by yourself and no one's going to be interacting with you, then you could call it a micro hit. If you have to kind of be available to still connect with people and you can't really go all the way into the task, then we would call it a background practice. Shamim.
So the difference between the micro hits and the background practice is just the amount of attention, right?
Exactly.
So micro hits are 100% you're in practice. In background, 10 to 20%, and then you do the rest of the stuff.
Exactly correct. Precisely. So the only real difference between micro hits and formal practice is the duration. Formal practice would be at least 10 minutes, and micro hits are anything less than 10 minutes. So as you may have guessed, your assignment this week is to implement practice in life. You've all come up with at least one activity of whether you can make a formal meditation period that you're already doing. You don't see the upside here is that we're using life to sharpen our skills, and we can sidetrack the excuse of we're too busy to practice because we don't have to do anything extra. You're going through your life. As you go through your life, you're just finding pockets where you can cultivate your skills by running these mindfulness techniques while you're already doing what you're doing. So it's great. This is monasticizing your day, bringing the practice into life. So we have 2 techniques to work with. You can implement these techniques as you see fit. Your practice is for you to cultivate. So you have see, hear, feel, you have feel, rest. Tonight, we explored at the outset of our guided practice, we did a little bit of just see, just hear, and just feel. So those are techniques that you may choose to use in your micro hits or background practice. Me personally, I love just hear. I really love to just, if I'm out for a walk, I just kind of soak into external sound. And I find it to be very peaceful, and it's a great opportunity to strengthen my skills. So I'd love to hear from you guys some examples that you've come up with. I wish we had time to hear from everyone, but I'm not sure we do. But somebody, please, I would like to hear what your formal practice period is going to be. In addition, so just so we're clear, moving forward, you have see, hear, feel technique, you have feel, rest technique. Your homework is 10 minutes of formal sitting practice a day, 10 minutes of formal practice and movement a day, 3 opportunities for a micro hit, and 1 opportunity for a background practice. I feel like I've confused everyone. No? Is everyone clear? Any questions at all? Okay, let me hear somebody's formal technique, formal practice period that they're going to bring into life. Isaac.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it while eating.
Great example.
Rest. Yeah.
Great example. And for me personally, that one's hard. I like to eat fast and not pay attention. So good for you. That's a great idea. That's a golden opportunity. Anyone else? Formal practice period. Jordan.
On the way to work at like 4:30. So
Now, do you drive to work or do you walk or ride a bike? You drive. Okay, cool. Yeah, now see, hear, feel technique is totally okay to do while you're driving. Actually, it makes driving a little safer because you're really, really paying attention. Feel, rest, probably not the best idea to do behind the wheel. And some of the other techniques that I'll show over the coming weeks are not good ideas to do while you're driving. But see, hear, feel, particularly focusing outward, is you become a safer driver because you're really paying attention. So commutes, morning commutes, great idea. Anyone else? Jackson.
I'm gonna commit to doing the feel rest as I fall asleep each night.
Yeah, man, that's a no-brainer. Good idea. I do that one too. Richard Sauer, I'm just calling on you, even though you didn't raise your hand. I want to know what your formal practice period is going to be.
Feel and rest between exercising sets.
Yeah, you can make the whole workout feel rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for you. Okay, micro hits. What do you guys got? Dawn?
Anytime I go to reach for my phone, I'm gonna do a micro hit before I reach for my phone.
That is a great idea. Wow. You know, I'll just share with the group, I recently read a book called How to Break Up with Your Phone, and it's pretty amazing. And if you're finding you don't have time to meditate, read that book and suddenly you have hours. Great idea, Dawn. Just a little check-in every time you reach for it. Good thinking. Someone else, micro hits? Natasha. I can unmute you. Okay.
Fine. Got it figured out. When I'm walking between clients, because I have a little bit of a walk between clients, or even when I'm doing my hair, just something mindless every day.
Sure. Make it mindful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. And background practice. Alec.
So this was actually one that I was kind of struggling about thinking. I had kind of was on the idea of like trying to think about it while having a conversation with a friend or a roommate.
Sure.
But just struggling with what kind of technique to come up with, whether it's maybe just paying attention to my breath while I'm talking to them.
Right. So you only have two choices really: see, hear, feel, or feel rest. So I think if you're in dialogue with someone else, feel rest might be appropriate. For you, I'm pretty sure you work in an office, yeah?
Yep.
So a great idea could be just if you have to sit through a meeting, you know, you kind of got to pay attention to what's going on, but you could leave 10% of your attention on your feel rest technique.
Gotcha.
So for anyone who works in an office, that's a good idea.
Gotcha. Good to go.
All right, good to go. So there you guys have it. This week, the focus is bringing your practice into your life. So I'll just reiterate what the homework is. We still have our daily 10-minute formal practice in stillness or sitting practice. Now, that practice is for you to decide whether you'd like to do see, hear, feel, or feel rest. Just go with what feels good. The acronym I think that I was taught was ION: interest, opportunity, necessity. So what's interesting to you? What opportunities are available, and what do you need? If you've had a stressful day, then feel rest might be a good idea. If some windows seem like they're opening in see, hear, feel, then go with it. So in addition to that sitting period of meditation, you've each come up with one 10-minute period of formal practice that you're bringing into your life that you can dedicate the full totality of your attentional resources to. Then there's 3 micro hits that can be anything less than 10 minutes, even 10 seconds would be considered a micro hit period. And you have your background practice. So the focus again this week is bringing the practice off the cushion into your lives. It's 8 o'clock on the dot. Unless anyone has a pressing question and you're not clear about the instruction, then we're going to end the call right here and now. And I will look forward to seeing all your smiling eyes, same time, same channel next week. You have my email. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop me a line. All right, you guys have a good night. Keep going.